Tiny cameras can pack a powerful punch, and with the rumors of a G7X Mark III starting to pop up more often on the internet, it's time to find out if the venerable G7X Mark II still works as a content creation camera. So does it? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. I'm so excited for this week's worth of videos. Now don't get me wrong, I really like working with bigger, more full-featured cameras, but carrying that stuff around all the time makes these videos get old after a while. I mean, there's only so much like shoulder pain I can get from like carrying around a gigantic camera and then, you know, talking at it. So having a tiny all-in-one package is just what the proverbial YouTube doctor ordered. I don't actually have a YouTube doctor. Starting straight out, I'd like to thank my friends over at B&H Photo for lending me this camera to make the next few videos about. If you'd like to get your very own G7X, there will be links in the description below. And second quick disclaimer, I'm not a photographer, nor am I a professional videographer. You know, I make home videos and these YouTube videos, so those are the specs and features we'll be talking about today. And when I say specs, I'm pretty light on spec coverage because for me, specs don't make the camera. What does make the camera is how well does it compare in the 4 categories that I feel are the most important for the online content creator. First up, video quality. You know, I guess buying a camera is pretty important, that it can actually produce a decent image, and bonus points if it can do good internal audio recording. Now, when it does come to the G7X Mark II, it can record in up to 1080p, 60 frames per second. Under the hood is a 20 megapixel, 1-inch CMOS sensor, and the built-in lens is a 24 to 100 millimeter equivalent zoom range that is 1.8 at the wide end and 2.8 at the zoom end. One of the things that caught me by surprise was the lack of dual pixel autofocus on the G7X, as I just assumed all recent Canon cameras had it. That is a huge missing feature on this little guy because it does have the Digix 7 processor, so it should have the oomph to run that, so I find that strange. To be honest, I find the image quality in the camera to be okay. Now here's where we're gonna break from my normal tradition of just saying that the image quality is good, because, you know, for the most part, cameras these days, they all have perfectly usable image quality. It's fine for the kind of camera it is, but at $650, this is an expensive camera to look the way that it does. For this price, you could get a Canon M50, which would give you a little more flexibility, plus have that great dual pixel autofocus I complained about earlier. I don't know, while using this over the last few days, if I wasn't straight up using it to record me talking to it, it was actually kind of rough to get the images I wanted. However, I do like when these small point and shoots with relatively big sensors have built-in ND. I mean, it does assist in getting your exposure correct, as you generally only use these things for travel, vlogs, etc. So you're not necessarily going to be using this in a studio with a bunch of like lighting gear strung up all around you. And the most unforgiving of all the lighting gear, the sun, you know, it needs tamed from time to time. So I'm kind of split here. I think the image quality when recording skin tones looks perfectly fine. In fact, great, because that's one of the things that Canon is known for. But when recording everything else, it gets pretty pricey for what you end up receiving in this camera. But don't take my word for it. Let's hop outside real quick for a video/vlogging test. Welcome to the vlogging test of the Canon G7X Mark II. So easy to set these up because you just got to flip up the screen, turn it on, and get going. It's so much nicer than having to mess around with the other cameras. Ooh, and it is, I can't decide if it's like too bright out here or if it's not bright enough. So the benefit of this and having cameras like this is it's got an, whoop, I just took a picture. It's got a built-in ND filter. Vlogging test begin. Record. Whoa. Okay, so this is the vlogging test of the Canon G7X Mark II. If you hadn't noticed, it is freezing outside today. It is way colder than I thought this was gonna be in any way, shape, or form. So I do really like this camera. The thing's gonna be though, it's really windy and kind of stormy outside, so the audio might be terrible, and it's no fault of the camera, it just has no audio input, so there's no way for me to plug the mic into it. So if you're not hearing the audio from this camera, you're hearing the audio still being recorded on the X-T3 through my lavalier mic here, but I'm gonna do my best to let you hear the audio straight out of this thing. So we're set to 1080p, 30 frames per second. We're at f1.8, the ISO is on auto, and we've got the stabilization turned on. This thing is super lightweight. It's just really easy to, as you just saw a minute ago, it was really easy to get set up and going. I haven't really messed with the settings too much. I did turn on the ND filter because it is daylight outside and it's kind of bright. it's bright enough to need the ND filter, but I love these little cameras because they're super small. They've got awesome zoom ranges. I've never used the Canon G7X before. I do have a Sony RX100 Mark V that we will be comparing it to on Wednesday, and I'm a really big fan of that camera, but people use these all the time, and I really like looking at the screen right here. It looks pretty darn good. Like, one thing Canon gets really right is autofocus and skin color. So here, look, this is the Fuji X-T3, which is an APS-C, like really nice camera that I think looks beautiful. And yeah, compared to the G7X Mark II. Man, I love how light these are. Normally when I do camera videos, it's so heavy. It's like, oh, it's so heavy. I get sick and my shoulder's like dying. But now I feel pretty good. Like, I could do this for a while. Okay, back to the video. Okay, and here's the indoor/studio test of the Canon G7X Mark II. Now, this is the exact same lighting, the exact same everything that you just saw with my GH5. In fact, the GH5 is still recording us. This is set to 1080p, 30 frames per second, 2.5, I believe. We're 2.5 on the lens because we're zoomed in a little bit. We got the ND filter turned off, where, you know, the regular stuff. So this is the image quality you could expect to get if you wanted to use this as an indoor studio camera. And one of the things about these point and shoots, and even something like on the Sony RX100 Mark V that I really like, is that wider open aperture. So if you get something like a camcorder that also has a 1-inch sensor, you'll see that they're like 2.8 at the widest end. And that's not as good for indoors, at least, you know, for the stuff that I do and the way that I like my videos to look. So I'm excited to see this. You guys know what this looks like. I have no idea, so we'll check this out in a second. But if you wanted to use this as a studio camera, again, I would recommend recording audio externally. Even in my little studio space that does have some noise treating in it, I bet you there's a whole bunch of echoing going on. So this is the video quality you could get out of the Canon G7X Mark II. Back to the video. And we're back. Image quality is one thing, but what's more important to me is how easy or efficient is it to get that image quality. For online content creators of any stripe, we have algorithms that, you know, we gotta feed, so it's important to have that. And much like the rest of the Canon cameras, the G7X is a very easy camera to operate, especially for a point and shoot. When you have a smaller body, you do have less room for more manual and physical buttons, but I like what they've done here. On the top, you have a dual kind of mode dial and exposure compensation dial built on top of each other, which is a pretty clever use of real estate, since again, you don't have the space for two separate dials, and I can get behind that kind of thinking. Also, the little menu button on the back is a scroll wheel, which again, is a clever use of body space. But the biggest benefit over something especially like the RX100 Mark V is the flip screen is actually touch enabled. So when you're in front of the camera, you can easily see if your exposure setting is off, and then you can really simply correct it. You just tap and go. Like, I love touch screens. I will say there are a couple of things about the body of the camera that I don't like, and it mainly has to do with recording video, which, you know, dang if that's not like the thing that I do, right? I just said that at the beginning of the video, that's all that I'm interested in. So when you're in movie mode, you can't start recording by hitting the shutter button. It takes a picture, which I guess makes sense, but having used Panasonic cameras for so long, I like when in movie mode, the shutter button just works as a recording button. I mean, the older Sony cameras do this too, but in the newer ones, they let you change that in the settings, and just everybody. This needs to just be, if you're in movie mode, I'm clearly wanting to do movies. And why this is a problem is the record button on the back is in a weird spot. Now, it's not A6300 weird, but it's pretty weird nonetheless. And when you are in front of the camera trying to like vlog or, you know, talk to the camera, it's kind of a pain to try to figure out, like, where is it? Like, okay, it's right there. Now, this is certainly not a deal breaker, but an odd choice of design philosophy. But you can take all the time in the world, if you had it, I guess, to set up the camera. What matters most is what happens after you hit record, and it becomes business time. So we hit record, and now it's time to get straight to business, and we call that, you know, obviously I just said it, business time. So how easy is the Canon G7X to use after you hit record? And as you saw during the vlogging test, it's insanely easy. Look, I just turned it on, flip up the screen, you're good to go. The ND filters within the touchscreen. That's what I like about Canon cameras more than something like the Sony RX100 Mark V. The Sony RX100 Mark V doesn't have a touchscreen, so you can't just like easily change the settings. Boop, 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 boop. I'm in front of the camera. I'm done. I'm ready to go. Hit record, go. I really like cameras that just work by themselves and they don't need me to mess with them. Like, once you hit record, you don't, like right now, I'm freezing, it's windy, this is terrible. I forgot the mount for my monitor. So this has just been a awful morning. So that is like, I hit record, so it's time to record the video. So the G7X Mark II, just like Canon's other cameras, it's insanely, like, they are the most, if there is one award that I will give Canon, it is they are probably the most easy to use after you hit record. And if that is something that's valuable to you, because that is a very valuable trait, ain't nobody got time to screw around with everything when you just got to create this content that you want to create. I'm not going to gush about this anymore. I'm freezing. I'm going back inside. See you there in just a second. And we're back again. I'm hoping to break these chairs. The last category is more about interchangeable lens systems that have battery grips and, you know, lenses that you can get, but what does the ecosystem / upgrade path of the G7X Mark II look like? Well, you can get a screen protector and some extra batteries. That's about it if you're not including stuff like gimbals or, you know, external lighting or stuff like that. So when it comes to these self-contained systems, you don't really need anything in addition to get them to work well. I mean, maybe get an external audio device if you want to up your video quality, because this has a lack of an internal 3.5mm audio jack, which sucks. Hopefully the next one has it. Besides that, there's not much else you can get. Man, that was an easy cat. I like it when they're easy categories because that makes the video much easier to edit. So what, right? So is the Canon G7X Mark II a camera that content creators should go out and get after watching this video? Probably not, which is weird for me to type this, and when I say type, I wrote the script this way, because I generally have a recommended audience for every piece of gear that comes through here. But the problem with the G7X is that the M50 and the SL2 exist, because this sucker is $650 and it doesn't really bring much to the table for that price except the point and shoot nature. So if you do need the point and shoot, it's fine, but besides that, it's got a smaller sensor, worse autofocus, no audio in, and a tiny battery. Not to say that it's all gloom and doom, the image quality is perfectly fine, the internal ND is great, and the body is really easy to use, and I really like really easy to use stuff, but everything in Canon's line is easy to use. There just isn't anything about this that jumps out at me and says, recommend me, especially with that fabled Mark III on the horizon. So if you do need a point and shoot, then yes, but for any other reason, I would say see what else is out there. On Wednesday, we'll see how this stacks up against the Sony RX100 Mark V, which is another point and shoot camera from yesteryear, and we'll see if you have to get a point and shoot, which one of those two I would recommend. You definitely need to check it out and join us. It's going to be a great time. Thanks for watching.